Well, someone ever asked me, Pete, what's this about this floating plastic island that I hear you talk about? Can you describe it for me? Even the chickens got quiet. Um, on the grand scale, and it is a grand project, but there is a grand amount of plastic waste. So if we could forget the stock for a second and look at what it is. And honestly, it keeps changing. It's not a very static design. Um, Looking at earlier renderings, I don't know how you can see how much, but it's consistently had this idea of building on a cell. So having a cell, and I see these hexagonal cells that lock together. Um, and the general design now is that they lock together and they're slightly faceted so that instead of being a linear, um, they curve and they curve around and they meet up with themselves into a circle. So you have these cells that have an exterior and an interior that are linked together, and they can be grown utilizing just a linking technique. So the cells aren't packed together. They have points where they're connected, and that there's a space that varies between the cells. And I see these spaces between them as a way to insulate the cells from one another. You can also connect the cells if need be, but generally they're independent cells, and there's a space in between where there's a growing medium, whether it's water or soil or what have you, that gives the opportunity for plants to grow out on and other animals to grow between, provides a bit of shelter and space. So if it's under the water, you have this hidey hole, you have a way to create this ecosystem between the cells. Water can pass through it, so the overall structure is not this one continuous um, ginormous mass. It's more of a interlinking of cells where water can flow through it. Um, Makes it less. Anyway, so that's it for under the water. Above the water, there's soil and there are plants growing and there's different sort of animals interacting. And I see basically every type of ecosystem, unfortunately. Um, I see a vineyard where you can rootstock different vines that would do well. Ways that you can control that. You're isolated, so there's very few cooties, pathogens, vectors that can travel terrestrially. Have a difficult time getting there. Obviously, cannabis would be an ideal crop to grow on these structures. But not just as monocultures, I see a whole ecosystem growing there. And as they grow and they expand, you get these cells large enough that you can have human habitation in. And they keep growing and rises up out of the water and creates a structure that floats, that provides life. Um, I've seen it. You need sunlight, you need water. That's basically it. I mean, life has been doing it for many, many years before us, and I see that given an opportunity to have water and sunlight, and things will grow. There's a lot of resources out there in the water. There's a lot of silt that is from, although we say we don't lose it. It's there. It's just a matter of whether it's cost effective to bring it back up out of the water. Um, you know, numbers wise, yeah, it costs a lot of money to repurpose or remove the silt from the harbors and truck it back up land. Cost about, well, these are 1990 prices, but about $7 a cubic yard to suck it up off the floor and put it into a barge, and then another 90 some odd dollars to truck it upstate and dewater it. If you can just take it off the floor and use it right there, already you're ahead of the game. I'm not saying, scale wise it would make sense, but eventually I think it could. What else, Pete? What else? I don't know. So the cells themselves would be made out of this material that is just easily produced. It's you take plastic film and you layer it until it becomes thick enough, and you can fuse those layers together just by heat. And they don't need to get up high enough to melt it. You just need to get it up to a temperature high enough so that it fuses. Um, and if you take sand and you heat the sand up, the sand is hot enough and it'll radiate its heat through all these layers of plastic into a solid material. There'll be a crust of sand on the outside, and that crust acts as a protective layer against the sun, which would be your major um, issue. Is the sun breaking down the plastic? Is it going to break it down and make it microplastics? I don't know. Probably. But having all these layers of thin film lying around in all these individuals, so you're compressing and consolidating all these layers into one smaller piece densely. Now, can you repurpose this? Can you recycle the plasticrete? Probably not. Um, and you're locking all these polymers in for pretty much eternity, the amount of energy required to then take the sand out. Anyway, Pete, stay positive. Stay positive, Pete. So, yeah, so you get this material that is very inexpensive to produce. And you produce these cells, and you have a form that's reusable or not. I don't know. I see making a cardboard form, then wrapping it, and the cardboard is embedded into it. And so you have an interior with cardboard. You could, I don't know what you could do, but it's a fairly cheap, easy way. I'd like to be able to develop this. I'd like to be able, heat sand up it efficiently enough that we can make a prototype. Um, I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of questions, and I hope you do too. So please email me, PeteNYC at Gmail, and tell me what you think. Much appreciated. Peace out.